It turns out I'm the villainous cannon fodder in a novel. My whole existence is just to highlight how wonderful the main characters are, while constantly causing trouble for the lead couple. Oh, and I'm also the one who drives all the secondary villains toward darkness. The novel's main Omega is Gavin, a gentle, kind-hearted guy everyone loves. I met him in college, we were roommates, so we spent quite a bit of time together. I don't even know when it started, but I began feeling jealous of this roommate who, despite coming from a poor background, earned respect and admiration from so many people through his own hard work. After that, I kept playing the role of the toxic cannon fodder, always going against Gavin, always causing him problems and setting traps. After graduation, Gavin stayed in City A and ended up with the main alpha, Foster. As for me, I followed my family's arrangement and married a capable alpha, eventually having kids. But even then, I couldn't calm down. I was obsessed, completely unable to stand Gavin. I constantly compared myself to him, and when I felt I couldn't measure up, I would fly into impotent rage. All day long, I devoted myself to finding ways to make his life miserable. A total brainless NPC. After committing irreparable mistakes in ever-increasing ways, the natural ending was that I reaped what I sowed and died a miserable death. After I died, perhaps from years of enduring my PUA and emotional abuse, both Quentin and the grown-up Lance fell into darkness, becoming the actual villains of the story. But, as they say, evil cannot win in the end. Both of them eventually met their own downfall. In short, the three of us were pure antagonists in the book. The day I woke up conscious of all this, I couldn't understand why I hated someone so much for no reason. I hated him to the point of losing myself, ruining my own life. I resented my husband and neglected my child. And yet, my husband was obviously handsome and rich, and my child was adorable and well-behaved. Right now, the only feeling I have is an urgent need to see them. So I sprinted home without a second thought. I saw my son, Lance, almost 4 years old, with a face that inherited the best features from both me and his dad, perfectly proportioned, very handsome. But on that innocent little face was a maturity that didn't belong to his age, and a faint shadow of melancholy in his brows. When he saw me, his pupils widened slightly, and he wanted to call out. But thinking of the countless times I had been impatient or neglectful toward him, he ultimately didn't make a sound. He just stood there silently, looking helpless. Seeing him like that made my heart sting, a sharp ache spreading through my chest. I quickly walked up to him. I crouched down and pulled Lance into my arms. One hand rested on his back, the other on the back of his head. Then I leaned in and planted a few kisses on his cute little face. His skin was smooth and soft, though his little face was a bit cold. I could feel him stiffen completely, his eyes wide with disbelief. Unable to resist, I kissed him a few more times. His once cool cheeks had already warmed up. At that moment, there was a sound from the hallway. Quentin had come home. Opening the door, he froze at the sight of me holding our son. His expression showed clear surprise, which was normal, given that I usually didn't pay much attention to Lance, let alone act so affectionate. I gently let go of the stunned Lance, patting the top of his head as I stood up. Then I took a couple of steps forward and pulled Quentin closer. The alpha was so tall, I had to rise onto my tiptoes and hold onto his shoulders to steady myself. When my lips touched his cheek, he froze instantly, just like Lance had. So I kissed him as much as I wanted, until Quentin stepped back half a pace, his voice stiff. "Preston, what are you doing?" Fortunately, it hadn't reached a point of no return yet. Fortunately, they hadn't completely given up on me. I looked at them both and smiled foolishly. I blinked and answered seriously, "Just being affectionate with you guys." Quentin frowned, pressing his thin lips into a line, his voice cold. "Say it, what do you want?" I was momentarily speechless. Is this really the level of trust one have with him now? "Nothing," I said, feeling a bit frustrated but trying to make my explanation sound sincere. "I really just want to be close to you both." But Quentin obviously didn't believe me. He averted his gaze and said quietly, "I'll keep my promise to you. The variety show, I'll go. Don't worry about me backing out." I paused, racking my brain for memories, and quickly realized exactly what he meant by the variety show. It was a hugely popular parent-child travel variety show, already in its second season. The format invited well-known families, often celebrities, and focused on their interactions. Families would travel together to different places and complete a series of challenges, showing the real dynamics between family members. Since Gavin's family was participating, I threw a fit with Quentin, demanding to join as well. I was determined to outshine Gavin on the show and make him look bad however I could. On that show, I did all sorts of terrible things, showing the entire country my ugly, selfish side. As a result, my reputation plummeted, even affecting the company's stock. That night, lying on the empty bed, I rubbed my hair in frustration. I certainly wasn't planning to cause trouble for the main couple anymore, but this variety show, it seemed unavoidable. Might as well go for a fun trip, and maybe build some bond with my husband and son. In the quiet room, I replayed the events of the past few years in my mind. Suddenly, a dull ache hit my head. 2 years ago, I seemed to have been in a car accident. The memories before that were hazy, like shrouded in mist. I could barely see them clearly. I only remembered being trapped in the story afterward, forced into the role of a malicious supporting character, doing many hurtful things. The more I thought about it, the worse I felt. I couldn't sleep. Because of my previous disdain for Quentin and my lack of affection for our son, we slept in separate rooms. The three of us, each in a huge villa, had our own bedrooms. I suddenly sat up and swung my legs out of bed. Quietly, I tiptoed down to Lance's room and crept inside. He was already fast asleep, lying peacefully, tucked in under the covers, half his face buried in the pillow. Seeing that innocent face, carrying shadows of both Quentin and me, made my heart melt. I gently lifted the blanket and climbed into bed beside him. Bathed in soft moonlight, I stared at him without blinking. After a while, it wasn't enough. I reached out and pulled the little one into my arms. But even in his sleep, Lance seemed to sense something, slowly opening his eyes. Seeing me, he didn't show surprise or confusion. Instead, he blinked and murmured softly, "I dreamed of Daddy again." Guilt and tenderness welled up in me. I stroked his hair and said, "Silly boy, it's not a dream. Daddy's really here." His eyes widened instantly. I planted a playful kiss on his forehead and continued, "Daddy wants to sleep with you tonight, is that okay?" Lance froze for a while, unsure, then cautiously nodded, "Okay." My unusual behavior today was so strange that I knew Lance must feel uneasy. His stiff little body said it all. I thought for a moment and said, "It's still a little lonely and cold. Shall we go find Daddy, Quentin?" Without waiting for an answer, I got a small blanket. I gently lifted Lance from the covers, wrapped him in the blanket, and scooped him up in one smooth motion. Quentin's room was right next door. Out of courtesy, I knocked first. I figured if he didn't answer, or if he was asleep, I could always sneak in with Lance and give him a little surprise. To my surprise, the door opened shortly after knocking. Quentin froze at the sight of Lance wrapped snugly in my arms. What did Lance do to make you mad again? It wasn't surprising he thought that way. After all, I had a history. Once, when Lance was sick and coughing, I found him noisy and forced him to stand in the corner as punishment. Quentin had intervened just in time. Seeing this out of the blue today, he probably thought I had gone mad and kidnapped Lance again. Lance peeked his little head out from the blanket and mumbled to Quentin, "Daddy, Quentin." Quentin realized his mistake, softened his gaze, and asked, "What's going on?" "It's so cold today," I blurted out, making up an excuse. "Honey, we came to cuddle with you." Quentin's eyebrows twitched slightly, but he reached for my arm and led us inside, then closed the door. The room was warm, thanks to the air conditioning. I took a deep, contented breath. Soon, we climbed onto Quentin's big bed, Lance obediently in the middle, and the three of us lay together. Only then did Quentin say, belatedly, "It's not actually that cold today." "Well, maybe it's just my heart feeling cold," I teased. Quentin, he seemed like he wanted to say more, but I cheekily closed my eyes. "Good night, honey." "Good night, Lance." The room fell silent, filled only with the steady breathing of the three of us. That night, I had a series of strange, surreal dreams. Dreams of my cruel, twisted face, indifferent to my family, ending in a tragic death. I woke up with my head throbbing. Finally recovering, I found the bed empty. Quentin and Lance had already left. I rubbed my forehead in regret. I had meant to take Lance to kindergarten that morning but hadn't gotten up. So I left work early that afternoon, contacted Quentin's assistant to let him know I was picking up Lance, and drove to his kindergarten to wait. It was the best private kindergarten in the city. Originally, Lance wasn't enrolled there, but when I learned that Gavin's son attended the same school, my obsessive competitive streak made me insist Quentin transfer Lance there too. Soon, it was dismissal time, and the children lined up in 2 rows to leave. I searched for Lance among them. I quickly spotted him, wearing a small backpack, his fair, standout features unmistakable. Next to him stood another small, fair-skinned, adorable child, shorter than Lance, with a delightfully charming face. Lance turned toward him, smiling, and seemed to be chatting. I recognized him, Drake, Gavin and Foster's child. I didn't interrupt. When Lance saw me, his eyes first lit up with joy, then a flicker of fear crossed his face as he realized something, and he took a cautious step away. I understood his worry. I had never allowed him to be friends with Drake, always warning him to stay ahead, to be better than everyone. I walked over and softly called, "Lance." He looked a little nervous, but his clear eyes held more joy, and he stepped toward me. "Daddy." Drake stood awkwardly nearby, wanting to greet me but holding back for some reason. I bent down and took Lance's backpack from him. Giving the little boy a friendly smile, I lowered my voice. "You must be Lance's friend, Drake, right?" Drake blinked in surprise, the tension on his face easing a little. He nodded quietly. "Yes, hi, Uncle. I'm Drake." I kept smiling, careful not to scare him, and even softened my voice a bit. "Good boy. You should come visit us often, Drake." Drake blinked again, more with delight than surprise. "Okay, thank you, Uncle." Ah, such a good kid. Watching these two adorable children, my heart completely melted. But before I could say more, Foster's assistant came to pick up Drake. He knew about my past misdeeds and quickly pulled Drake away, shooting me a sharp glare as he left. "Looks like I'll have to win people over slowly, through my actions." I sighed inwardly and held Lance's hand, walking toward the car. Along the way, Lance mustered the courage to ask softly, "Daddy." I stopped and looked down at him. Can I be friends with Drake now?" he asked hesitantly. I crouched down to meet his gaze and said seriously, "Of course, sweetie. It was Daddy's fault before. I shouldn't have said those things. From now on, you can make friends freely. I won't interfere. And I'll try my best to be a good dad too. Don't be disappointed in me, okay?" A mist of emotion filled Lance's eyes, but he bit his lips stubbornly, keeping the tears from falling, and nodded firmly, "Okay." I didn't rush us back home. Instead, I took Lance to a nearby mall, picked up some snacks, and let him choose some clothes. Then it hit me, our little family of 3 had rarely, if ever, eaten out together, except for work events. So I called Quentin and invited him to meet us. We went out to a restaurant and enjoyed a big meal together. This audio is originally produced by the YouTube channel, Omegaverse Tales Studio. Please credit when sharing. That night, I stayed with Lance, reading him stories. After tucking him in, I naturally went into Quentin's room. With his surprised gaze on me, I declared, "From now on, we'll sleep together." Quentin was silent, wanting to speak but hesitating. Finally, he exhaled and muttered, "As you wish." We lay down, but Quentin kept his distance, lying on his back and refusing to look at me. I pouted and scooted closer. "Why so far away?" "Quentin, as you wished." I rolled over and draped my hand across him. "I didn't wish for that. Don't you understand what I mean? I came to kiss you." Boldly, my hand slipped under his pajamas. I whispered, "Or, maybe do something else a little more." "Preston." Quentin grabbed my wrist, his deep voice barely restraining something. "Do you really like to tease people?" Though expected, his reaction still sent a sharp pang through me. I quickly pushed down the sting and pressed on, "I'm not teasing you. I'm serious." "You don't want it? Do you really dislike me that much?" I lowered my eyes, half real emotion, half playful. "But if you really hated me, how could you have fathered such an adorable baby with me?" Quentin furrowed his brows, instinctively denying, "I don't mean that." He slowly released my hand. I wrapped my arms around his waist, resting my head on his shoulder. Softly, I said, "I want your scent. Your heat isn't coming yet." I didn't back down. "I want it even if it's not. Will you give it to me?" Quentin went silent. Then, a warm, rich latte-like scent filled the room, mingling with the milk's gentle sweetness and the coffee's subtle bitterness. He was releasing his pheromones. I closed my eyes in comfort. Quentin turned and held me, restraint in his grip. My pheromones flowed uncontrollably. The pure coconut scent of mine collided with his latte pheromones. The sweet coconut softened the sharpness and bitterness of his scent, filling the room with a calm, harmonious aroma. Looking up, our eyes met. Almost instinctively, I kissed his lips. Quentin froze, then his large hands gripped my waist and returned the kiss. It was a fiery, entangled kiss, almost bordering on uncontrollable. After a long while, Quentin finally released me, gently brushing the corners of my lips. As he tried to pull away, I cupped his neck and whispered, "It's been a long time." His pupils constricted sharply. He stared at me, making sure I wasn't joking. Seeing the restrained tension in his deep eyes, I muttered in my heart, "Look at how hard he's holding back. Amazing self-control." Then I lifted my head and kissed him again. Quentin couldn't resist any longer and rolled over, covering me. As our breaths mingled, I saw him reaching for something on the bedside table. I pulled him back, murmuring, "No need. Just don't go too deep." The room filled with pheromones, 2 bodies entwined on the bed. In the following days, I dedicated myself to repairing my fragile relationship with Quentin and Lance. I moved into the master bedroom with Quentin. Every night, I would make sure Lance was asleep first, then return to the bedroom, sometimes coaxing him to sleep between Quentin and me. Every morning and evening, I tagged along in Quentin's car. First, we'd drop Lance off at kindergarten, then Quentin drove me to the studio before heading to his company himself. The route was convenient enough. Soon, it was almost time for the variety show filming. On the day we were invited to shoot promotional posters, seeing Gavin's family, Quentin lowered his gaze, his expression darkening instantly. Lance, however, was delighted, running off to play with Drake. That evening, after dinner while walking, I noticed Quentin seemed a little down. I went to hold his hand, but he subtly avoided me. I could guess what he was thinking and sighed, about to explain. Then he asked in a low voice, "What are you trying to compete with this time?" I opened my mouth. "Which family looks happier?" Quentin's face darkened further, a flash of self-mockery and sadness in his eyes. I quickly softened, forcing my fingers through his to hold his hand. "I just want to show off our happiness to the whole country, and we can use this chance to have fun with Lance. I promise, nothing else." Quentin was silent for a moment, his expression softening slightly, but he still didn't fully believe me. "Fake can't be real," he said. "Real can't be fake," I whispered into his ear, standing on tiptoe. "We've kissed so many times lately, remember? And at night, your pheromones almost marinated me, pressing me until I couldn't stop." Before I could finish, Quentin interrupted, annoyed. "Preston." A faint blush stained his ear as he murmured, "Stop talking." Just then, a stir came from my lap. I looked down to see Lance staring at us with big, clear eyes, innocent and pure. Daddy Quentin, why aren't you leaving?" I giggled. "It's okay, I'm just being affectionate with Daddy Quentin." 8. The show was called Seeing the World with Our Kids, and this season featured 6 families, including ours and Gavin's. Our first stop was the Northwest. On the first day, everyone gathered to introduce themselves. Because of my terrible reputation, Gavin looked openly wary the moment he saw me. On top of that, his expression carried this exhausted, helpless look, like he just stepped in something nasty and couldn't shake it off. His husband, Foster, kept standing protectively in front of him and shot me several warning looks. Then Quentin, seeing me get glared at, refused to back down and glared right back. 9. Today's destination was the desert. Because I always resisted traveling, the 3 of us had never taken a proper trip before. So this was the first time Lance got to go on a real family outing since he was old enough to remember anything. On the vast dunes, with endless golden sand stretching to the horizon, he looked genuinely happy. He was about to charge off when I grabbed the hood of his jacket and reeled him back. Lance turned around, confused. I crouched down and hung the little water bottle, passed over by Quentin, across his chest. "Keep this on you. Don't run too far, or your dads will worry. And remember to drink water often, okay?" He gave me a bright smile and nodded hard. "Okay, Daddy." Lance was a good kid. He didn't run wild. He stayed within our line of sight, playing quietly. I watched him for a moment, then slid closer to Quentin and naturally took his hand. Quietly, he squeezed my fingers back. When I looked up at him, he seemed lost in thought. In those dark eyes was a mix of emotions, something like contentment, and a little melancholy. "What's wrong?" I nudged him, blinking dramatically. "Did dragging you on this trip mess up your work schedule? It's all my fault, isn't it? You're so busy, and I still cling to you." "No," he said almost immediately. "I'm not busy lately." His grip tightened slightly. He looked down, voice low and a little awkward. "Taking Lance out more is good for his development." I pressed my face against his arm, holding back a laugh. "Yeah, and it's really good for my emotional well-being too." Then, when no one was looking, I leaned in and stole a quick kiss on his cheek. The tips of his ears instantly turned red. Just then, Lance ran over, tugged my pant leg and looked up. "Daddy, can I give Drake my cheese sticks?" "Of course you can." I crouched down. "They're yours, you can share them with anyone you want." Lance smiled shyly. "Thank you, Daddy." I gently pinched his soft little cheeks. "You're welcome, sweetheart, go ahead." He ran off cheerfully toward Drake. As I watched him go, I happened to meet Gavin's eyes from across the sand. Our gazes locked. And this time, instead of the usual hostility, his expression carried something more like curiosity. 10. There were plenty of activities in the desert. The first day of the trip was all about unwinding, and the crew didn't give us any tasks. So we just had fun the entire day. Camel rides, desert buggies, sandboarding, we tried everything. Since Lance and Drake already knew each other, they felt comfortable sticking together. But as time passed, they also started playing with other kids. Watching Lance, who used to be so withdrawn, finally show the joy and energy a kid his age should have, laughing more and more, it honestly warmed my heart. Off camera, Gavin approached me once. He watched me for a long moment before finally saying, "I feel like, compared to the last time we met, you've changed a lot. I smiled. People grow. If I remember correctly, you're a bit past the age where that saying applies. Fair point, but how was I supposed to explain this? I couldn't exactly tell him I had been possessed before, so I just shrugged. Then let's say I transformed. Gavin let out a near-silent sigh. I hope you never go back to how you were. Lance is a good kid, and Quentin cares a lot about you. If you put your energy into your family, you'll be much happier. The implication was clear. Stop bothering me. I straightened up, nodded sincerely. You're right. I'm sorry for how I acted before. I shouldn't have made things hard for you. I promise I won't do that ever again. If there's anything I can do to make up for it, just tell me. Anne, I hope nothing I did affects the friendship between Lance and Drake. Gavin paused, surprised, then said, as long as you understand, Drake really likes Lance. I don't mind them being friends. After a beat, he actually smiled. Preston, I think I'm seeing the you from our college days again. I blinked. College? Is he saying I look younger now? 11. During the trip, the three of us, me, Lance, and Quentin, shared the same room every night. Before sleeping, I would tell Lance a story, but after so many nights, I'd run out of material, so I shot Quentin a look. Honey, your turn. Tell him one tonight. I smirked. I want to listen too. Lance looked at him with hopeful eyes. Quentin froze for a second. Storytelling clearly wasn't in his skill set, but faced with our combined expectant stares, he caved. With the seriousness of someone preparing an official report, he pulled out his phone and searched carefully. When he found a good fairy tale, he began reading it aloud. In a distant enchanted forest lived a gentle, kind rabbit mother and a brave, steadfast rabbit father. They lived a simple and happy life. One day, the rabbit mother discovered she was expecting. His deep, mellow voice, usually cool and composed, felt like warm moonlight pouring into my chest. Lance held my index finger with one hand and gripped Quentin's shirt with the other, and soon drifted off. In the darkness, Quentin's voice faded, leaving only steady breathing. Feeling Lance already asleep, and knowing the crew definitely wouldn't be filming us in the middle of the night in a pitch-black room, I whispered, honey. He no longer reacted awkwardly when I called him that. He whispered back, what is it? I puckered my lips. Kiss. These past few days, cameras were everywhere. I was dying over here. Quentin didn't answer, but from the rustling I could tell he shifted closer. Lance was between us. Quentin braced one hand on the mattress, moving carefully as he leaned toward me. I tilted my head up in understanding. The next second, his lips landed on mine. His tongue slipped past my lips, our breaths tangling, heat exchanging through every slow, lingering movement. Warm traces of his scent, coffee-like and soft, mingled faintly with mine, sweet and light, blending gently in the dark. When the kiss finally ended, I lay there, a little dazed, my face burning. If we kissed any longer, I honestly wasn't sure I'd be able to keep it PG. 12. You're listening to Omegaverse Tales Studio, a YouTube channel dedicated to captivating short stories. Let's continue. The 5-day trip was packed with activities. We crossed the Gobi Desert, explored the water-eroded Danxia formations, and visited countless colorful salt lakes. On the last day at this stop, the crew gave everyone the same task, confessions under the stars. Everyone, adults and kids alike, had to stand under the night sky and say one thing they most wanted to tell their family at that moment. Of course, what each person said was kept secret until the episode aired, but I couldn't resist. My curiosity was itching. I desperately wanted to know what Quentin and Lance had said. So when it was their turn to record, I begged the director to let me stay close, secretly hiding to listen. First up was Lance. Facing the camera alone, he fidgeted nervously, fingers twisting his shirt, eyes wide with anxiety. After some encouragement from the crew, he looked up at the camera and pressed his lips together, then in a clear, innocent voice said, I hope Daddy and Daddy will always love me like this. I touched my chest, feeling that bittersweet ache in my heart. Then it was Quentin. In front of others, he was always calm and controlled, rarely showing any emotion. This time, he looked composed as usual, but when the crew explained the task, the cold, frosty alpha's eyes softened for a brief moment. He didn't hesitate long. His voice steady but firm. I will always protect my love and my child. I froze in place, grinning like an idiot, feeling as if my heart was coated in honey. 13. The first stop of the trip ended. The next filming would be in a week. Everyone went home to rest. Traveling was tiring. I slept like the dead the next day, but Quentin and Lance were still full of energy. Quentin went to the office that day, and Lance was busy drawing and playing with toys all morning. I spent the day lying around, even dozing off again in the afternoon. In my half-sleep, I felt movement and opened my eyes to see Quentin and Lance on either side of me. Quentin placed a hand on my forehead, worry in his eyes, while Lance's little face was scrunched up, panicked, as he flopped onto me. I blinked. What's going on? Are you sick? Do you feel unwell? Quentin's calm voice whispered in my ear, Preston. Ah, now I understood. They thought I was sick. No, I just nodded off on my phone while playing earlier, I said, rubbing my eyes and smiling. Got a little dazed. I got up and looped an arm around each of them, giving them both quick kisses. Quentin let out a sigh of relief, running a hand through my hair. Good. Want to get something to eat? Yeah. 14. The next day, Lance went to his favorite swimming class. Quentin had the day off, so we got a little lazy and had the assistant take Lance there. After a slow breakfast, we snuggled on the couch to watch variety shows. I found a comfortable spot leaning on him, and the alpha draped an arm over my shoulder in return. We shared sips of soda back and forth. I could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong, and feel the faint rise and fall of muscles under his thin shirt. My focus drifted from the TV. His hand slid down from my shoulder to my waist, one of the spots I was most sensitive to, which Quentin knew well. Our eyes met. Naturally, we kissed. After the kiss, I wrapped my arms around his neck and whispered, "Do you want to?" He took a deep, steadying breath. Yes. The next second, he lifted me into his arms. As he carried me upstairs, I pressed my face to his, kissing and nuzzling him, ignoring the bumps along the way. Once on the soft bed, I hadn't even caught my breath before he pressed himself against me again, blocking my lips. Our hands scrambled over each other's clothes, soon leaving garments scattered across the floor. The scent of coconut and coffee filled the room, intertwining in a silent, intimate dance. Quentin's hand gripped my waist while the other rested firmly on my ankle, his strength impossible to resist. I clutched his forearm, eyes shining in the warm yellow lamplight. Time blurred. I buried part of my face in the pillow, feeling his near-burning body behind me. My sensitive neck brushed by his mouth, a delicious, intoxicating warmth spreading. His teeth lightly pressed near my glands, the rich coffee scent blending with my sweet coconut aroma, merging into one. We moved together, lost in the rhythm of the moment. 15. Soon, it was time for the second episode. This trip took us to the southern rainforest. Knowing the bugs would be bad, I grabbed Lance before entering and applied insect repellent all over him. He was a good kid, holding out his soft little arms for me. Once every exposed spot was covered, I helped him put on his jacket and hat. He looked like a tiny little adventurer, so cute. I was admiring his perfect little outfit when Quentin's deep voice cut through. Preston. I turned, and before I could say anything, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me over. What is it? I asked. Apply the repellent, he said simply. His strong, defined fingers pressing the lotion onto my skin made my mind wander to inappropriate places, and I shivered. Lance, ever innocent, asked, "Daddy, why are you trembling?" My face flamed. I looked at Quentin and blurted out nonsense. Nothing. Daddy just shocked me. Quentin raised a brow, said nothing, but didn't contradict me. 16. At the next location, the kids were excited, looking forward to the trip. The crew gave a new task. Each family had to collect 3 special rainforest treasures before reaching the campsite: unique leaves, medicinal plants, or edible wild fruits. Each family got different photos and could pair up with another family for help. Once they got their photos, Lance and Drake immediately huddled together, comparing what they had. The rule was free pairing. Since the kids were naturally compatible, the adults went along. So we paired up with Gavin's family. Gavin was always kind and generous, and after spending some time together, Foster had relaxed around me too. The forest was full of life, fresh and vibrant. Guided by a professional, we moved through the rainforest, searching for treasures. Sometimes the path was muddy. Quentin would scoop up Lance with one arm while holding my hand with the other. "Daddy, Drake and I found this leaf," Lance exclaimed, eyes shining. I went over to look. Sure enough, the leaves matched the photo perfectly. "Awesome," I praised. Lance looked at Drake. Drake saw it first. I crouched, ruffling both their heads. "Really? Then thank Drake." Both of them laughed and eagerly ran off to find the next treasure. 17. The task wasn't really difficult. Just paying attention allowed you to find the common creatures of the rainforest. At this age, the kids' curiosity made the journey even more fun. Before long, we reached the campsite set up by the crew. After a meal and a short rest, everyone took the kids to experience rainforest-specific activities. We slept in treehouses that night, mainly because the kids wanted a taste of living in a fairy tale home. Lance, exhausted from the day's excitement, quickly fell asleep. A soft, unconscious smile lingered on his face, as if he were dreaming a sweet dream. I tucked him in, gazing at his peaceful face for a moment before stepping out of the room. Outside, the terrace overlooked the jungle and offered a view of the starry sky above. A rocking chair sat there, and Quentin was perched on it, looking up at the stars. Hearing my footsteps, he turned his gaze toward me. I joined him, squeezing in beside him. He instinctively pulled me close. I nestled into his embrace, both of us staring up at the stars. A low voice whispered in my ear, "Preston." I turned to him. Quentin stayed silent for a long moment. Just when I thought he wouldn't speak, I felt his jaw brush against my hair. In a husky voice, he asked, "Will you stay with us, forever?" I froze, catching the fleeting sadness in his eyes. My chest ached. I pressed my face into his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and promised earnestly, "Of course, I'll always be with you too." 18. The Rainforest trip was going according to plan, until the weather suddenly turned against us. As we moved forward, rain started to fall. At first, it was just a drizzle, but soon it turned into a torrential downpour, something nobody had expected. We happened to be near a small creek. The calm water level quickly rose, and the current became fast and dangerous. Everyone scrambled, calling out to each other as we moved toward gentler ground. Then I noticed Drake had accidentally scraped his ankle on some plant. He yelped and stepped toward Gavin, who was reaching for him. But the moss-covered rocks were slippery. Drake's foot slipped, and his body lost balance, tumbling toward the rushing water. Reacting faster than my brain, I sprinted over, grabbed his hand, and held him securely before passing him to Gavin, who had caught up. In the chaos, I misstepped on a slick rock and fell backward into the creek. The current slammed into me, tossing me around uncontrollably. I swallowed water and couldn't open my eyes. I heard Quentin and Lance calling my name in panic, but I couldn't respond. All I could hear was the muffled underwater roar, and as my vision darkened, I slowly lost consciousness. 19. Afterwards, I felt like I'd been trapped in a long, vivid dream. Forgotten memories resurfaced. Through the haze, I finally understood everything. Yes, I had originally been the vicious cannon fodder in the story, but my awareness had awakened much earlier than I had realized. It happened before I met the main character who would eventually be loved by Gavin. I resolved to change my fate, to never repeat the mistakes of the book and meet a tragic end. Later, in college, I did meet Gavin, just like the book. But I didn't harm him or oppose him. Instead, we became good friends, and our college life passed smoothly. When we entered society, Gavin met his destined love, Foster. I obeyed my family's wishes and married Quentin. Over time, we grew closer, and we had our adorable little Lance. Everyone was happy. I thought I could live peacefully like this. But one day, the world consciousness noticed my awakening. It wouldn't allow the story to deviate from its original path, so it punished me with a severe car accident. I was on the brink of death. Young Lance and Quentin were devastated, unwilling to lose me. They made a deal with the world consciousness, just as long as I lived. After that, to restore the storyline, I became the cannon fodder villain again, and Quentin and Lance lost all memory of our shared love. Even so, they never hated me deep down. No matter how cold or harsh I was toward them, they always chose to forgive, because they loved me. 2 years after the accident, I finally regained my awareness. Higher dimensional spectators of our story, moved by their will, freed me from the constraints of the plot. They didn't want to see a senselessly cruel villain. They wanted to see the characters living sweet, happy lives. 20. This story is exclusively produced by the YouTube channel, Omegaverse Tales Studio. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. When I woke, my eyes and cheeks were wet. I unconsciously touched my face and realized I'd been crying. Quentin and Lance were beside me. Seeing me awake, they rushed closer, worry etched on their faces. "Preston, why are you crying?" Quentin looked uncharacteristically flustered. "Are you feeling unwell?" Lance's little face was full of panic, about to cry. "Daddy, boo-hoo." "I'm fine," I said. "I just had a dream where you and Daddy couldn't find me and were so sad. But I was right here the whole time. You just couldn't see me, and I couldn't speak. I got so anxious I cried." Lance listened carefully and then held my hand, solemnly saying, "I won't lose you. Daddy and I have always been here for you." Quentin leaned over and kissed my forehead. Thanks to the timely rescue, I was physically fine and was discharged soon after. Gavin's family even visited, expressing heartfelt gratitude. Honestly, I should thank them too. After my recklessness over the past 2 years, they still treated me calmly. But it wasn't all bad. From now on, I'd live my life well. 21. 2 days after being discharged, I begged Quentin to take Lance and me out for a big meal. He couldn't refuse and agreed. After the delicious food, the three of us went shopping. It happened to be a holiday. At the famous square, there was an exciting iron flower performance. Quentin and I squeezed to the front with Lance. Lance was thrilled, shouting in excitement. After the performance, fireworks lit up the wide plaza. Lance, in between Quentin and me, held each of our hands. He looked up at the sky and said in his sweet little voice, "Daddy, Daddy, I want to be with you forever." I squeezed his hand tightly and gave the same answer. "Of course, we'll always be together."